Season 2022 training camp was up at the lovely Bright. The whole objective of the training camp is one, we like to get a great deal of hard work into the players through a couple of different activities, but also want the players to have a great deal of fun also. And then the last objective is we want to connect as a side, but also we want to connect with the community, which is really important. The players, they knew we were camping, but they didn't know it was going to be more like a glamping type of atmosphere. So when they were driving up the dirt road, I think they had a horrific look on their face, and then they started to get a bit of enjoyment when they saw the glamping tents. So our first activity was one where it was to challenge them a little bit mentally. We obviously gave them some IKEA items, which, as you know, at the best of times are very, very hard to do. Furthermore, to make it even more difficult, we took away the instructions. So each team had to pick an object to make that was hidden under a tarp, and if they were lucky, they got a very easy stool. But if they were unlucky, they got a bookshelf to make, which is incredibly difficult. And if I'm being completely honest, there were no chance of doing it at any stage. So that group automatically in the Amazing Adventure race probably came last. You know, it was always a challenge. There was one stage where I saw Noah Bolter's group trying to make the bookshelf, and I couldn't stop laughing. They were completely going about it the wrong way. But I think the great thing from it was we got some instructions, and the players enjoyed that. The first day was basically the vast majority was on bikes. So it was a reasonably tough day. So whilst tough, it was still enjoyable going along the rail trail. And along the rail trail, we wanted to break it up, so they had a couple of roadblocks. So one of the roadblocks they had to stop was at a farm and then roll a 350 kilogram hay bale up a slight hill to get it to the top of the driveway, which at the start of it the players quite enjoyed, but by the end of the probably 400 to 500 metre driveway, they started to get a little bit tougher along the way. But that was an interesting challenge for the players first up. Probably one of the highlights of my day, there was two generally, but the yellow team, they initially read the clue, and the clue was to send them on the way to Beechworth. So we're going from Myrtleford to Beechworth. The yellow team read the clue completely incorrectly, and they decided to head back to Bright. So you can imagine when that side that was consisting of the very feisty Toby Nankervis, Josh Caddy and Will Martin discovered that they were going the wrong way. They took it really, really well, which is all part of the activity, but to their credit, those boys fought back pretty well. Another roadblock along the way was a Weepix challenge, which the players had to devour one Weepix within 1 minute, which, funnily enough, I thought would actually be quite tough, especially considering they were quite parched when they arrived into the roadblock, but the vast majority did it pretty well. In fairness, half the guys were spitting it out as they were eating the little treat, but they did that block reasonably well and recovered quite well. One of the great thing about Bright, it's got some beautiful landscape and some great streams and creeks along the way, and rivers, obviously, I should say as well. But each side had to go to a challenge, and had to find 4 rocks that were hidden in water holes in this beautiful area we see here. It's funny, as soon as you put a player within, water, they all of a sudden become very childlike and have a great deal of fun.
Do a group shot.
Day 2 was a training day for us, so we were very lucky to train at Myrtleford's footy oval, which was fantastic, very picturesque, big footy ground actually, which was great. Had a cricket pitch in the middle, so we had to avoid that, but it was great to have the size of the ground to do some training drills on. The boys trained very well. It was funny, there was quite an incident in one of our last drills where Marlon Pickett had a contest with Liam Baker, and you know how hard Marlon goes, and unfortunately Bakes found out how hard Marlon goes. He was lucky he survived the hit, really. It was fortunate from our point of view he hit such a tough nut in Bakes, because anyone else would have been on the sideline gasping for air. So the boys trained really well, enjoyed it, and we got a great session in the morning. Fortunately for us, we've got some great footy players, but we've got a couple of very ordinary riders as well. Yeah, young Noah Bolter, he probably struggled a little bit on the bike. Thank God he can play. And the other one was a couple of the young boys who were off the back of the packs, but it was really enjoyable to see them try and dig in as best they can. We had a great activity where all the players were blindfolded apart from one leader that was to sit there and get the guys to make the tent. Probably the highlight of the day was Jack Graham was injured. He hurt himself in the training session, but he decided to have a little bit of fun with the guys that had blindfold on and was getting a stick and effectively just rubbing it on the inside of their leg the whole time. So they thought ants was on him the whole time. And I think the main guy he hit up was Toby Nankervis, and you can imagine how well Toby took that. He's a man that has got a great deal of patience with that sort of thing. I thought he was going to lose his mind, and thank God he didn't know Jack Graham was doing it, because I thought he would have ripped his head off at some stage. But that provided a great highlight for all the people watching. Last activity of the day after 2 days of hard work was the tube race down the lovely Buckland River, which was a great way to finish. Yeah, a lot of the boys put a lot of effort into their raft building. Obviously, we got these donuts that we bought for I think $7 or $8, and you can see here this team. This is the worst raft building I've ever seen. They just basically tied the raft to one tyre and then just let it drop along the way. But it was a great way to finish the day. Probably the highlight was Ivan Marich, who cramped in both his quads and his hamstrings, and I was in that team. We effectively had to wait 10 minutes because he'd start to move and his quad would go, then he'd stretch out his quad and his hamstring would go. But it proved a great delight to every team along the way. But this is a great way to finish the camp and a good deal of fun. Look, camp, as per normal, it's always a great experience, and we have a great deal of fun. And the one thing that always happens, the last night we tend to gather around the campfire and we have a drink or two to celebrate the camp, and there's always one guy that takes the joke a little bit too far. And that guy this camp was Camden McIntosh. So when all of us had decided to go to bed, Camden McIntosh decided to get up at 3 a.m. and zip tie everyone's tent so he couldn't actually get out. And unfortunately, if you need to go to the toilet, you're in a great deal of pain, because it took you about 45 to 50 minutes to try and get that tent open. So the great thing about being the coach is I get to pick the side. So Camden, you can get stuffed. You won't be playing round one because you zip side my tent, you bugger. But it was a good fun along the way.